should probably talk first about the remaining Infinity Stones. I believe one is the Time Stone and
Soul Stone.
Soul Stone. Okay. I'm guessing one of them is going to be showing up in Doctor Strange. I think there was rumors that the Time Stone is going to show up there. You have to assume that they're coming up in one of these upcoming ones because we don't have many movies left before Infinity War where they would show up.
I don't know. I'm not too much into the comics, but to have 2 Infinity Stones on planet Earth, unless somehow one of the stones just made its way here, I have a hard time believing that, you have these really powerful artifacts and 2 of them were at one point on the same planet. But then I have a third one on Earth. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a stretch.
No, I agree with you, Hoagie. I would probably bet my house on the fact that they probably wouldn't include an Infinity Stone in Doctor Strange.
Don't talk out loud. You lower the IQ of the whole street.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 49 of the Pseudo Nerd Podcast for December 9th, 2016. I'm your podcast host, Josh Kaiser, and joining me in the Dark Dimension today, the Supreme Sorcerer, Josh Haddix.
Oh, I see what you did there. How you doing, everybody?
And Kyle. Just Kyle. It's like Adele or Wong or Beyonce. It's just Kyle.
You could just call me, I couldn't just be Wong or something.
Or Dormammu, or whatever his name is.
I've come to bargain.
Coming to today's podcast, we will break down the Doctor Strange movie that's just tearing it up at the box office. Give our favorite moments, what we liked, what we didn't. Our typical movie review about this newest Marvel hit.
Speaking of tearing it up, Alex, what did you eat for dinner today? Seniors. Or say before we started, I'm only asking because you were just talking about how you're ripping ass earlier.
I mean, I just ate some chicken and some tater tots. But
I want some chicken right now. I just had Taco Bell and I'm still fucking starving. I don't know why.
So Taco Bell for dinner.
It was delicious.
Well, you know what else is delicious is the fantasy football playoffs, which is starting this week, and better yet, you two fellow hosts are actually playing each other. So,
indeed,
that's exciting.
Indeed
Haddix,
I don't know if we call it playing each other. It's more like, Haddix just, he's there. He's just going to kind of.
Hey, he's there for the first time in 5 years.
I know, yeah, I gotta give him credit. He doesn't know what it feels like. He forgot what it felt like to be on a winning team. So, congratulations to Haddix.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. But Hoagie, if you end up losing, you're gonna eat those words, just like the Cavs not winning the championship.
It's true, Hoagie. You have been wrong on many occasions. But don't worry, Haddix. If you do beat him, he will be Team Bring It all the way. He'll throw his Team Bring It hat on. He'll be all supporting you.
Oh yeah, as soon as I win, dude, he'll be my biggest fan for sure.
I can get on with that. I'm always a fan of the underdog. The lesser of the pack, the runs, if you will. So for that case, Haddix, yes, I would support you if you did find some way to miraculously beat me this week.
All right, I'm gonna hold you to that.
Hopefully,
you would hold me.
Hopefully, I'll be playing one of you guys here in a couple of weeks because that would mean I have made it all the way to the championship, and as did one of you. So here's hope.
I'm hoping it's a Kaiser Haddix matchup. The two teams that were probably total 5-point swings either way. Could have been one of us in, one of us not in.
Oh, it was, there was definitely a nail biter there on that Monday night game. It was, we kind of watched it come down to the end. And Haddix, you and I, for an entire season, finished within half a point difference of one another, which is pretty impressive for total points. Yeah.
Yeah. That is, and I feel like the last 3 weeks even, we scored very similar scores the last 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And for that, here we are. So congrats to the three of you. Hoagie, if you guys went back and listened to our NFL preview podcast, we pretty much ripped your draft. We thought RG3 was going to be a bust. Well, we were right on that fact.
Well, I mean, he technically still is on the team, but
you managed to make it there without RG3. So
hell, I almost got a bye.
Good for you.
I was one game from a bye.
It's true. Maybe you'll tell Haddix goodbye this week, and we'll find out.
That's
we shall see. We shall see.
But enough fantasy football talk. I don't know if people care about that much or not. But let's just get into it and discuss Doctor Strange. And I think before we get into it, we'll do our usual go around. Everybody give your quick thoughts on the movie, as well as, Doctor Strange is not, the most common superhero. It's not like we're watching a Superman movie that everybody's pretty familiar with. So kind of give how much, maybe a little background knowledge of what you did know about Doctor Strange coming into this movie.
I mean, I personally didn't know much. I had seen some of the animated movies that they had on Netflix a while ago, just because I like comic book movies in general. And I've always been a fan of like the magic side of things as well. Not Magic the Gathering. That's a different game. Before Kaiser says something.
Why would he ever do that? He never does. He never cuts anybody off.
No, he never cuts anyone off. Yeah.
As a host, I like to just let everyone finish their thoughts and speak freely.
It's about being respectable to the other hosts.
Exactly.
For sure.
Absolutely.
That's what he's all about. But yeah, I had a very small amount of a background, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great movie. I thought it was probably one of the better. I don't know if it's considered a one-shot movie or basically not an Avengers movie. Well, I guess for now, not an Avenger.
It's to say for the moment, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what that's considered. Not one of the main. Not your Captain America or your Iron Man or Thor. I guess those are the three main ones that have had multiple movies. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good, and my boy Benny, really came through. Enjoyed it.
Is that what he is on your cell
Benny.
phone? So it's under your contacts, Benny? And the Jets?
He's right under there
Benny
below
Boy.
Rawls, J.K. Rawls. Yep. So
my girl Rawls and Benny. Sometimes we all hang out together, but that's beside the point. I don't want to name drop on the podcast.
You got a lot of British friends.
I mean, across the pond, dude. Across the pond.
Hoagie, how about you?
I was really looking forward to this after seeing Guardians of the Galaxy, only because, like we've already discussed, this is kind of a breakaway from the main cast of the Avengers, and obviously it's the same universe as the Avengers. So it was I was looking forward to it. I actually had a lot of expectations for this movie, mainly because they've been doing very well with, I think, what most people probably the general populace would consider a low expectation movie. So you got your comic book nerds who are probably going to rip it to shreds if it's bad, but then if it's good, then it at least appeases them, and then it introduces a new story and a new interest to the people who weren't so keen or well aware of the character. And I fall into that as well, kind of the same as with Haddix. I've seen a couple things on Netflix and some of the animated stuff. I think they casted it well, and I think it carried over really well, especially with people who didn't understand kind of what the sorcerers do. So, and I'm glad they kind of just glossed that over. So overall, I really did like it. I know we'll talk about it more in detail, but yeah, I definitely did enjoy it. I was afraid it was going to be boring, and I was very surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to agree with you guys for the most part. I had almost no knowledge about Doctor Strange other than just knowing that he was a person. But outside of that, I really didn't know anything about his background. I've actually not seen anything that, any previous animations or comics or anything like that he's been in. So I didn't really know what my expectations were going into it, other than Marvel's done a very good job with their movies, and I expected it to be, if nothing else, I sort of put it on that it was going to be like Ant-Man, where you went and you watched Ant-Man, it was like, yeah, that was solid, whatever. I had a little more hype for it than Ant-Man, though, probably because of Benedict Cumberbatch. I've enjoyed him in Sherlock and some of the other things he's done. So had some hopes there for it to be pretty good, and I gotta say it exceeded my expectations personally. It was a very entertaining movie, sort of how Guardians of the Galaxy kind of came out of nowhere and surprised, but not to the level that it did. But I still thought it was a very enjoyable movie.
Plus, we finally got to find out the one true question, which is, what does Tilda Swinton look like bald?
I'm sure that was on the minds of millions.
At least as many people that listen to this podcast. They were all interested.
That's true. Probably every PNPer out there anyways. So why don't we just talk about the characters briefly, sort of our thoughts on them. I guess we'll start with the main guy, Doctor Strange, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. He's sort of an arrogant dickhead at the beginning of the movie. This very confident neurosurgeon who's just got the hands of a magician, if you will. And he does great surgery until he really screws up by texting and driving. So I really think there was some subliminal messaging there that you should not text and drive or you use your cell phone and drive, because if you drive distracted, bad things can happen.
I was actually curious if his carrier was AT&T, and just someone would be like, this can wait, or whatever the hell they're saying.
Oh yeah. Also, quick congratulations, Hoagie, Alex Smith with a touchdown pass. So
yeah, I saw that.
That's 4 for the whole season. I didn't get that guy for touchdown passes. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. But anyways, obviously he kind of opens up as his life is changing, and he goes and he starts learning all about the astral universe and things like that. But very entertaining. I look forward to. He sort of how like Robert Downey Jr. played Tony Stark. It's kind of on that level, but in a different way, to a level that you look forward to the day that those two are on screen together, because there should be some witty banter between the two of them.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be great. We'll talk about it later, but yeah, that'll be great.
So I mean, any thoughts on Doctor Strange? Anything you guys like that I haven't mentioned or did not like about his character?
No, I personally think they nailed it. So I agree with you.
I just like that he was pretty much a dick the entire, almost, I wouldn't say that a dick, but really the whole point of the movie, or the main focus of his character, was that he didn't really care what the responsibilities of being a sorcerer was. He just wanted to have his hands back. He wanted to get back to doing surgery again. He wanted to go back to his life he had, where he was successful and people looked up to him. And he's very arrogant. He has a huge ego.
Very egocentric.
And so when he lost his hands, that was his moneymaker, were his hands. And so by losing them, he would do absolutely anything to get that back, and end up getting him into Kathmandu and talking to the Ancient One and becoming a sorcerer. But even throughout all of that, the means to the end was that he just wanted to go back to being famous again and being a surgeon. The whole idea of protecting the Earth from outer dimensional beings, that meant nothing to him. He could care less about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, and you feel like almost at the end, he kind of turns things around and starts to sacrifice himself for the greater good. But it does take a long period of time for that transition. And
I think his ego also played that too, though. I think the ego also played a role that, obviously we're going to be talking spoilers and everything, but when everything's said and done, he realizes that he is going to be an integral part of this, defense now. And I think his ego made him feel like, okay, now I'm going to be famous this way. I still think there's a big part of him that thinks that what he's doing is still going to ultimately give him the notoriety and the attention that I think his ego needs.
I don't know if he's going to get notoriety for it, though. It's not like he's an Avenger where he's going to be, people know Iron Man, they know Captain America. They're not going to know this guy who's fighting, interdimensional, other dimensional beasts and
well, yeah, but
things
what
like
I'm
that.
saying is his abilities now are I said, even at the beginning, where it's only been one movie, he's learned a lot really quickly, faster than probably anybody. And having something that, like, in his eyes, he's better at than anybody now. I think that also feeds into his ego, that he's climbed the ranks.
It'll be a personal thing, but
fast.
I don't think it's going to be like a notoriety amongst, the common folk.
He wants to be the best. Whatever he's doing, he wants to be the best at. His ego doesn't want him to be second to anybody.
He's like Ash Ketchum of the Marvel Universe.
I mean, you gotta catch them all. Get those badges.
I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. But so his teacher, we'll move on to her, the Ancient One, played by, as you alluded to, Hoagie, our girl Tilda. What did you guys think about the Ancient One? Because I
thought she was good. I never.
There was some speculation because it was played originally. It was an Asian.
Old Asian man.
Right. As you sort of expect from the stereotype of the Ancient One of this thing, and her playing it. There was some criticisms about it going in that she was cast for it, but did you enjoy her role in it?
I didn't mind it either way. I thought she did a good job. The weird thing is, I remember when all that came out, all that criticism came out. I don't know who from Marvel made a statement that, the casting would make sense, with what they're trying to do or in this MCU. And if that was an old Chinese man, I think it would have been the same. It wouldn't have done anything. I didn't mind her. I thought she did good, but
at the end of the day, I think her character was fine. I'm not. Yeah. I don't think she's gonna have it's not gonna be one of those memorable roles by any means. I don't think that I'll be like, oh, I remember when she played the Ancient One. It is what it is. She didn't screw it up, but it was fine. But I have really not much to say on her or the Ancient One in general. I thought it was a good role. The way the Ancient One, as the teacher, and sort of that bridging him to being the next, supreme sorcerer kind of thing, was fine. A touching moment at the end with her death scene. That was good. But outside of that, she was fine. It was whatever.
I don't think her role in there was so. I guess obviously she's not going to be, unless she's going to be in weird flashbacks, or if she has the ability to come back from, being some sort of spirit type of being. She really wasn't. She was important, but she wasn't in the end, I don't think her role is going to be crazy missed. It's fine that she was in there, but she's been, she's replaceable in this sense. The original Ancient One was kind of, in the comics, was kind of like your stereotypical Fu Manchu Asian guy. And
I think that was the nod they made in the movie too, when he walks up to him and says, "Oh, hi, Ancient One, what can you do?" And it turns out that guy's just one of the people learning there, but he's not the Ancient One, because they had that old.
But he looks like he could be, right? Old Asian Fu Manchu guy.
Oh, exactly.
But I think what I was reading about it was they really were walking on eggshells about getting somebody like that, because you're always going to run into people who are going to think they're going for a stereotype of some sort, the old Asian, wise man or whatever. And then the other thing they thought about doing was doing it like an Asian woman, but they are also afraid of doing, I don't know if anyone's heard of Dragon Lady, where it's like the older Asian woman stereotype. And they were trying to stay away from that. And then the other problem was doing a younger Asian woman would be they were afraid that was going to turn into every movie that has a young Asian girl, it's usually almost sexual, and they didn't want to get that. I think that they were just trying to avoid everything. So unfortunately, it's a lesser of all these evils, and they end up whitewashing anyways.
Androgynous version of Tilda Swinton. So
So we got Tilda Swinton. It's kind of like with Ghost in the Shell that we're going to have with Scarlett Johansson. I think they just felt like it would be less stereotypical and maybe even a little less sexualized. And that's crazy to say with her, but it's kind of like that. Like, yeah, it sucks about, quote unquote whitewashing films and taking away from Asian, cinema or American cinema for Asian actors. But it's kind of like how I guess you got to make the decision about how are you going to get more butts in the seats. I guess they think Tilda Swinton would do it.
Real quick, I just want to throw this made me laugh. I'm watching Stat Tracker for this game, and it just popped up and said, Alex Smith passed to Alex Smith down the middle for a 3-yard gain.
Yeah, it was deflected and he caught it. So good job,
nice.
Good job, Kyle.
Sorry.
Double dipping there.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to Carl Mordo. This sort of setting up to be the next major villain. I think he's the nemesis for Doctor Strange, but in this one he's sort of his companion going through and till he decides that the Ancient One led him astray and that kind of thing. So what did you think of his performance in this?
I liked him a lot. I thought he did a good job. I didn't know how much of a nemesis apparently he's like the Joker to Batman, for Doctor Strange. He's like his arch nemesis,
right,
if you will.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that going into the movie. I mean, I knew he turned bad at some point or whatever. I didn't know if it was going to be long down the road, whatever. But he did a very good job at being good and Doctor Strange's pal, and very convincing at the end of why he's kind of turned his.
Yeah, and now he wants to, basically he thinks that there should only be one sorcerer, and he's going to be that guy. So I liked his character development, and I think I'm actually going to enjoy him in future movies going forward, whether that's just Doctor Strange 2 or if he makes an appearance in some of these crossover kind of movies.
He's definitely the character that I'm most excited about as far as development's concerned. Because he's your classic, very, he learned to live by a strict code, a moral code, when he became that sorcerer, and he was training Stephen Strange, and he didn't really kind of like the way that he was kind of bending the rules a bit. He was kind of like the crotchety, old police chief trying to hey, let's do everything by the book type of thing, and then finding out later that even the Ancient One was bending the rules for her own gain, even though it was for the greater good overall. It was kind of like the difference between him and Stephen Strange. The Stephen Strange being new to everything, he kind of accepted the contradiction of the Ancient One, drawing power from the dark dimensions in order to keep her age and to keep her strength. And he just Mordo just couldn't understand that. It almost kind of shattered his mind that something like that somebody like that would do something like that. And so his idea is that he's going to be the antagonist, but he's thinking that everything he's doing is for the greater good as well, and that he should be considered a good guy. So that's what I'm looking forward to. It's
definitely one of those gray area sort of villains, and you actually, I like you said, I think he could be one of the more interesting villains that Marvel's had. Which brings me to the next character we can talk about, and that's Caecilius, who sort of is the main antagonist in this movie, and he's, I don't know, kind of silly. He's almost more a joke, and kind of, again, the typical Marvel villain that's, I don't know, I think he's kind of boring personally. And at times I thought he was almost too silly to be taken seriously. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
I mean, I didn't mind it. I like the actor. I like Mads Mikkelsen, or however you say his name.
Yeah, I like the actor in general, but I just didn't, I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, he definitely, he was definitely cracking some jokes, whether he meant to or not. But yeah, I mean, I guess I can see where you're coming from, and maybe Marvel didn't care because they were really building to the whole, Mordo thing that we were just talking about. But I didn't think he was as bad as some of the other villains in the other movies.
for a one and done villain, he's fine. Like I'm not worried about him. He did okay for what he was doing. He kind of was, I don't know, the way someone at work once told me, who's really big into Stephen Strange and the whole Doctor Strange story in general. And he liked the movie, and he compared it to having, Dormammu, who would be like a Sauron type of character, and then Saruman is, Sauron. I'm really bad at this stuff. But there's a
the listeners know. You don't have to tell them.
Yeah. the human part of it being Caecilius, and then Dormammu being like this gigantic entity, this bigger villain. And so you had to have some sort of human relatability in the movie for Doctor Strange to go against. It can't just be Dormammu. That just makes no sense. Especially at the beginning. You're not going to fight Dormammu.
Yeah.
So you got to throw somebody down in there that becomes infected in a sense, or corrupted by Dormammu, and that's where you got Caecilius here. So for a one and done, that's fine. It makes sense that the first villain that's going to be in this, that's going to kind of introduce, is going to be someone from the inside of the ranks, that's going to cause tension and problems inside the school, or the Academy of Sorcerers, or whatever the hell you call these guys. It makes sense for that to be the first one, being somebody who once again thinks that the Ancient One's a hypocrite, and maybe it's best that we move away from these strict moral code and go another direction. Once again, him thinking that he's the good guy in this matter.
Yeah. Well, let's move on off the characters for now. I'm sure the rest of it will kind of come up as we discuss what we liked and didn't like about the movie. And like we all said, we all kind of in agreement that we really enjoyed this movie. So what stood out for you guys about this movie that you really enjoyed? Don't all jump out at once and say anything.
I thought it was a good mix of everything. I thought it was a good story, nothing crazy, no crazy twist or something that like blows your mind. But a solid story, good character development. Doctor Strange, Mordo. Even to some extent, what was it, Caecilius or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, you get a little background on him, and like, so it kind of gives you a little bit of everything, even a little bit about the Ancient One. Not a shit ton, but a little bit. So, I thought it was a good character development, an overall decent story, good story, I guess. And the acting was great. I enjoyed everyone's acting. I don't think I had a problem with anyone. Even I really liked the bigger Chinese guy. What was his name?
Wong.
Wong. Yeah,
that's his real. That's his real name in real life too.
Benedict Wong.
As Wong.
Yeah. So I think it was.
Who, by the way, is traditionally also in the comics a stereotypical person. He's supposed to be in the comics. Wong is like a manservant of Doctor Strange. Like gives him his tea, and they didn't want to do that. So because for obvious reasons. So they just made him like the keeper of the library after that one guy lost his head.
Haddix, did you say the actor's name is Benedict Wong?
Yeah.
So there are two actors in this movie with the first name Benedict?
Yes.
I don't think I could have named more than two Benedicts in life outside of Benedict Cumberbatch and Benedict Arnold, and there are two starring in this movie. That is a strange coincidence right there.
Benedict Wong kept his last name as his name, although that might have been the name in the comics. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think overall I just enjoyed every aspect of the movie, and I think just combined it made it a great movie for me.
One thing for me that really stood out is it has a different feel than previous Marvel movies. At the end of the day, it still has that light humor, like all of them, most of them do. But it was much different. They had the whole sort of Inception feel with all the visuals and stuff like that, which were fantastic visuals. But just the movie in general, and especially the way that they took care of Dormammu at the end, it was a very unique. It wasn't the typical villain is destroying, city or leveling a town or this and that. Like it, you had a little bit of that in there, but it was, the way he battled and finished him off. He actually didn't destroy Dormammu. He just bargained with him. And I thought that was
he basically annoyed the shit out of him, is what he did.
Pretty much, yeah. He's like, I'm just sit here and annoy you for eternity because I know I'm not powerful enough to defeat you. And eventually Dormammu was like, all right, dude, I'm out of here. You're kind of this shit sucks. And I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but Dormammu was played by Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yep.
Was he played by him or?
Yeah, it was like, you know how he did Smaug in...
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that same thing. They're like, oh, you did good with Smaug, we're going to have you do Dormammu. And he played Dormammu. So really, Benedict Cumberbatch annoyed the shit out of himself till,
Dude, that's some messed up stuff, dude.
I can safely say this might be, of all the Marvel movies, I love the way this movie started. I think the first 15, 20 minutes, where it starts out with Caecilius going in and decapitating the librarian, steals the pages, and you go right into just the trippiest scene of, all that reality distortion, then the visuals you were talking about that were crazy awesome, and it honestly really sets up for like how serious business like these people are, and like the kind of power that they possess, and it's usually something that you kind of learn and start grasping as the movie goes. I mean, no, you're front and center with it the first 15 minutes of the movie, with Caecilius and the Ancient One kind of going at it. So I thought that it really set it up well. I really liked that movie could have easily been a comic book nerd's dream of explanation of how alternate realities work and dimensions and things like that. But I'm glad, but they didn't do that. They kind of glossed over it. They gave it to you enough where you understood that it existed and just said, hey, just look, there are other dimensions. So let's just move on to something more interesting. And that was the one thing I was scared of going into the movie was I really hope this isn't like, what I saw in the previews was all that was going to be exciting. And then the rest of it is going to be, sit down and we're going to talk, we're going to teach you about science fiction for the next hour and a half. So I'm glad that's not what it ended up being. Because that was my biggest fear was being bored to death. Especially because I really didn't think there was going to be a whole lot of humor in this movie. I think there was the right amount. Nothing seemed forced. And,
I thought there was a decent amount of humor, but like you said, it wasn't forced. It wasn't. I always go back to Transformers 2, which I thought was way over the top with humor, and they added scenes for humor, which unnecessarily, and it just became like, all right, this is dumb. But no, it felt very natural. A lot of it was just conversational, and it was, a
lot of it was witty. Like a lot of it was just like a witty exchange or something like that, where it gave you kind of like a little smile here and there, but nothing that seemed a little slapstick or over the top.
They definitely don't take themselves too seriously with Marvel movies in general, and this is just another version of that.
And overall, too, this was a good movie like I said, we know this is a Marvel movie. We know it's in the Marvel universe, and this movie did a great job of at least recognizing it. How they even mentioned that we're kind of like the mystical Avengers type of thing. So they are aware of who the Avengers are clearly, and what their role is versus what they're doing. So at least that ties it in. But that other than that, that's it. That this is much more independent. Of a movie than they probably could have done. Obviously, the end credits, he's talking to Thor, but the movie would have been fine if there was no Avengers movie or no story behind it. I think it did a good job on its own.
And I mean, really, for all intents and purposes, there was not. I mean, the end credit teaser stuff is just that. It's teasers setting up for future stuff. But the movie itself, like you said, you wouldn't have had to watch a single Marvel movie to understand what was going on in this. There was no play on that whatsoever. And yeah, I mean, it's just...
Was there really even any kind of like nod to the things that happened in the world because the Avengers?
I think they made one or two
the
comments. I want to say there was one other comment made.
I think Tony Stark's name was dropped once.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple little things. There was a part I thought was a Easter egg, and I researched it later, and apparently it's not. I still don't know if I buy it or not. But at the beginning, when Stephen Strange is in the car and he's got his I don't know, for lack of a better agent, lack of a better word, the guy on the phone telling him, like, I've got this guy who, needs brain surgery, you interested, or I got this person. And one of them says, he goes, I have this, mid-30s general who had armor tech crush his spinal cord and he might not be able to walk. Something to that effect. And he goes, nah, that's boring. I don't want to do it. I thought that was a call to Brody, yeah, from Civil War. And apparently the director was interviewed in an AMA on Reddit and said, no, that's not the case. But I don't know. I just thought that, I don't know if he said that afterwards because it doesn't fit with some timeline or something. But I gotta figure that was, that just seemed too coincidental.
Yeah, maybe it was something that they meant to be a shout out, but then they're like, oh, well, yeah, it doesn't fit in our timeline. That hasn't happened yet. So like, oh, well, say that it doesn't mean that or something.
So I don't know, but take that for what it is. And one other minor thing for me that this movie does do, which is good, is it brings in the next Infinity Stone. So as we're getting closer to Infinity War, these stones are going to have to show up, and this, the Time Stone is here. So it was good to see that. Now what where one more stone is. If you're
and once again,
track.
It happens to be on Earth. Coincidentally,
hey,
all the worlds in the galaxy, and I think we've had 3 of the 6 on Earth.
Hey, Earth is a very important part of
apparently
everything. We're very centric, so center of the world. There's a reason people want to take us over, dude. It's because,
and we still don't even know where what's the last one, the Soul Gem. Still don't know where that one's at yet, but I assume that's probably going to be Ragnarok. But who knows?
It could be Ragnarok, could be Guardians. I mean, I think they're both due out.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
So
we'll find out.
We'll see. That said, was there things about this movie that you guys didn't like?
Well, let's just get it out right now, because I know this is usually a discussion about movies that aren't romantic or romantic comedies or Notebook or whatever, and there's a love interest that just feels forced or feels like, why is this even here? I actually thought this wasn't as bad as other ones. Look, here's the thing: they're gonna be there. Do I think this might be like another Thor and Natalie Portman type of thing? I actually think so. I don't think she stays much longer in the whole. I don't know how many films or how many times she's going to be introduced. Hell, that could have been the only time we even see her. So right now,
talking about Rachel McAdams' character.
Did you not? Are you saying you didn't like her? Was that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is I don't think it's that important enough to judge it one way or the other. Because I honestly don't know if they're even talking. Are they talking yet about doing a Doctor Strange 2 or is not yet?
I mean, it wouldn't be till after Infinity Stone.
I would be shocked if it doesn't happen, but they haven't come out, I don't think, yet and said Doctor Strange 2 is scheduled out in, 2021 or whatever. But right. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time, especially after how successful it's been. Yeah. But I agree with you. Like, I thought Rachel McAdams was great in this. I also thought it was sort of a wasted role for her. I think they honestly could have had her play just his buddy, or they could have had somebody else just play a friend. The fact that they kind of threw the love story in there just seemed unnecessary to me, and I think it's because it takes me back to that Thor Natalie Portman love interest, which is now like non-existent. I don't even know if Natalie Portman, I think she's done being in the movies. I don't think she's going to be in the next one.
Well, just like Pepper Potts, I mean, it looks like she's not coming back either.
That one I was actually okay with because it was developed over a long period of time, and it kind of, it is, it's a little more, makes a little more sense. The Thor one never made sense, and this one I don't think they could have taken the love interest out of this, and it wouldn't have made a bit of a difference to this plot whatsoever. And I thought it was just like, hey, we need a love interest. Let's make make that in here.
The only thing is, I don't. That might have been like to the T his origin story. So maybe they didn't want to just take it out, and like the whole Natalie Portman thing. Jane Foster is like huge to Thor. in his comic book world.
But in this, she's not, and I don't think you're going to see her anymore.
I think that's just I think that might have been an oversight on Marvel's part of, I don't know what kind of contract they signed Natalie Portman to. I mean, she's a bigger name. I don't think you're going to be able to just get, if they would have done something a little less known.
I gotta imagine Marvel's not hurting for money where where they're worried about contracts with anybody they bring along.
But it seems weird that, like, even the times they mentioned her after Thor, she was in Thor 1 and 2,
yeah,
and they never showed her.
They couldn't bring her into Avengers, and they made that comment she's off hiding somewhere. I think it was just the fact that they're like, we really don't have a role for her anymore. Like, let's just drop it. And I think they're going to run into the same issue here if they want to try to bring her in as a love interest. So I just think it's I don't know, I don't think any people watch these comic book movies, these Marvel movies, for the love stories.
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself.
Is there any interesting love story in any Marvel movie that you can think of?
No, but it's still human nature to have it. I mean, remember, they had a relationship before he got his powers. It's not something you're just going to just glossy over. Not to mention, you're going to bring your girlfriend or your wife to these things. Maybe that's something that draws in where there's a sentimental part of the movie.
I understand the idea between putting a love story in there, and that's why they do it from the Hollywood end of it. But has there been a single love story that has interested you in any of these Marvel movies?
I'm trying to think.
Like you said, I'm not very. That just doesn't interest me, anyways. So
I enjoy. I do enjoy.
That's fair, but is there anything you're like, oh god, I really like these two. I really, I'm happy that they're.
I enjoy this Star-Lord Gamora thing that's going on. That's apparently going to go into the next one.
And that one's a little more entertaining from a comedy side. So I'll give you that. But I don't
a relationship.
Yeah, but that's fair.
How did you feel when Pepper Potts?
If those two did
Pepper Potts died, or if you thought that she died at the end of 3, did you feel bad?
That's probably the one relationship that I've had any investment in any of them. So yeah, I'll give you that one because it was a long time developed. But even like the Star-Lord Gamora thing, like if they don't end up together, I'm not gonna shed any tears. Like I'm not pulling for him that much,
I mean, this might be a little bit of a stretch because it's not MCU, but the whole in the original Spider-Man, the Mary Jane.
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
But that one, we'll see if they I gotta imagine Mary Jane's going to be a part of that, but maybe not, so I don't know. I just think I agree, Kyle. I think that the love interest was just unnecessary. And we kind of talked about it already for me, but the other big thing is just I thought Caecilius was just not a good villain in the typical Marvel thing. He did what he had to do for this movie, but I thought he was rather just silly. I thought he was just too...
More like high silliness, right?
Nice. I like that one. I thought he was more of a case of being like like if you're watching a kid's cartoon or something and the villain's like real goofy and like that's sort of what I never felt threatened by Caecilius.
Let me ask you this. Did you ever feel threatened by Saruman in the Lord of the Rings movies? Like, he was always around, but he wasn't like the ultimate bad guy. He answered to a higher power.
I took him more serious. I mean, I didn't think of him as a joke, where Caecilius to me came off as a joke the whole time.
Well, I guess the thing is, who would you... I feel like now that what they're doing with Mordo, I feel like the story's not over. So with that said, it's kind of, I guess the question then is, turning it around, is if you didn't like that villain or you thought that it was kind of silly the way it was done, I guess instead of saying what you didn't like about it, like what would have made a better villain, or what would have created a more interesting one and done villain?
I mean, that's the thing. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't think Marvel does either for one and done villains. Now that said, I think Mordo could be a very great villain going forward. I think they developed him well for that setup. Just like Loki, I thought, has been developed very well as a villain. But then some of these other ones are just kind of like meh.
They struggle with the one movie villains.
They seem to.
I mean, and I'm sure that's not just an easy thing to do because you have to develop a character in 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
It's still it's an ongoing problem with them, and it's one that I think they need to work on. So maybe that bodes well for Thanos, though, that they've been developing him over 15 movies, that he will actually be good, but we'll see. Anything else that you guys didn't like about the movie that you want to bring up?
I know. So. I said I didn't really have any other issues. The only question I remember I think my wife had asked me, or maybe it was somebody from work. I think it was my wife. I think she asked, and I think I saw it in the notes. I don't have it up here right now, but she was asking like, how long was he in Kathmandu? Like, when did he finish his training? It just seemed like that could have been 6 months. That could have been 2 weeks. Like, how long was he there? And
the timeline is very glossed over.
Yeah. But I think that's a movie. That's a typical movie. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, because you're not. Well, it's not even just. But to me, it's not just the timeline, but it's a matter of, for this one, I'm like, whether it takes 2 weeks or 6 months. There's moments where you're like, oh, he's a brand new sorcerer just learning his skill, and then next minute you're like, oh, he actually is very talented with this. He must have been there for a while. And then a minute later, it's like, no, maybe he's not. He's still learning, doesn't know what's going on. So there's some of that kind of pacing that just seems a little strange, if you will.
I get it. Yeah, the pacing was weird because, he gets a couple books to read, and it seems like he reads them all overnight.
Which would be understandable. It's like, okay, he's like a gifted student. He's a very intelligent guy in general. So that makes sense. But then it's like, he goes from like, oh, I didn't sign up to, fight your war. And then he kind of fights the war and like seems like he's a very talented like soldier, for lack of a better word. So it seemed very kind of.
He goes toe to toe with a mystic arts master, like in 2 hours, which that's what I've always been curious about.
I mean, I think the whole thing is that he is an insanely gifted sorcerer. Like, he's just a typical sorcerer that learned fast. Like, I think he was innately a great sorcerer, and that was the whole thing of the movie was like, holy shit, this dude's a badass. He doesn't even need train that much. Plus, you can't spend 45 minutes training the guy. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I see where you guys are coming from, but if they would have done 10, 15 more minutes of training,
no, it's not even that, but you almost just, you don't have to see the training, but you almost have to understand what kind of, how much has he progressed, because it seems like it's, 1 minute it seems like, okay, he's still learning, the next minute it seems like he really knows his shit, and it just kind of seemed like it was, which way do you want it, So there was some of that. To me, it's very. I'm nitpicking. I understand that. Like,
yeah,
it's not. I didn't lose anything in the movie. I didn't walk out of there saying, "Well, that didn't make any sense." That kind of thing. Like you said, it's a movie. I said it in Fantastic Beasts that I didn't want them sitting there collecting all these animals. So I'm glad they didn't have another 15 minutes of, training
of him
montages or something like that. But it's just, it just seemed like it was kind of convenient on when he had his skills, but then also like still being new to it. So there was just, I don't know, a little questionable end of that. But again, nitpicking. So that said, we've kind of discussed Doctor Strange, being in, having sequels, things like that, being possibly in Infinity War, things like that. What do you guys think, what's the future for Doctor Strange? Obviously, he's going to be in the new Thor movie, as the mid-credit teaser showed him and Thor talking there. Or, which I want to get your guys' opinion. Do you think that was Thor, or do you think that was Loki as Thor?
Dude, I was going to ask you if I had talked to you about that. I couldn't. Did you send me that, or did Ryan send me that?
I did not send you anything. I thought it myself that there was a chance it could be Loki because Loki at the end of not Ragnarok, at the end of Dark World, Loki is
is Odin.
Presenting to be Odin. Right, exactly. So
yeah.
I think that there's a chance that that's Loki in that scene.
Yeah, Ryan had sent me an article, and to summarize it real quick, some dude wrote this. Obviously, this isn't like a for sure thing, but basically said the same thing. In that little sneak peek, Thor's there looking for his dad, but at the end of Dark World, his dad is alive. So he's saying that that's Loki acting like Thor, asking for help to find his dad, even though he knows where his dad's at because he's, trapped him, killed him. I don't know what he did with him at the end of the movie. Plus, we know that Thor Ragnarok takes place not on, our planet, so Thor's not anywhere to be found. So the guy is thinking that he tricks Doctor Strange, gets the Infinity Stone from him, and that's what brings Doctor Strange to the Avengers, is he wants his stone back, and that ties in the Avengers and Doctor Strange.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah,
which would be a great tie-in to all of that, and bring him into the fold for Infinity War.
Yeah, exactly.
Kyle, any thoughts on what you're looking forward to with the future of Doctor Strange, the character?
I mean, just the fact that because he is in possession of an Infinity Stone obviously gives him a reason to stick around. I guess my whole thing with him right now is the movie was good enough to be by itself. He's going to gain notoriety to either get a sequel, or at least Mordo is going to show up somewhere. And if he's going to show up somewhere, so is Doctor Strange. I'm excited for it. I'm not sure. I don't think I highly doubt he's going to be in Ragnarok at all. I don't know if anyone even thought that he might have an appearance in Ragnarok. I highly doubt it. As far as the whole Loki thing, I didn't even think about that. But then again, I hadn't seen Dark World in a long time. I almost forgot about where Loki was. But no, I'm excited for the future of Doctor Strange, whether it's in another standalone movie or he, furthers the development of the Infinity Wars, and at some point with Mordo. I'm more excited about Mordo actually than Stephen Strange, the character. I'm just very curious about. It seems like they're teasing that he's got a plan that of some sorts. I'm more interested in that than the education and the building of power from Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I think Mordo could be a very great villain. So I look forward to seeing that. And like I said earlier,
Marvel needs a good villain too.
They do. Other than Loki, they need one. And I do look forward to the day that Benedict Cumberbatch and Robert Downey Jr. share verbal blows on screen as two former Sherlock.
I was about to say, as Sherlock Holmes.
Actors. Yeah. So, no, it should be entertaining. So as we kind of wrap things up, guys, any notable moments, scenes that you liked, hated, that we have not discussed that you want to bring up here?
I really enjoyed the whole him getting the cape scene where the cape was saving him.
I was definitely going to make a comment about the cape. He's got this cape, and the cape almost had a magic carpet from Aladdin sort of feel to it, where it's got a life of its own, beating up guys, kind of wiped his tears and sort of drags them around, points them where to go without doing anything. Like really this anthropomorphic sort of feel to it, and really really enjoyable with the cape for sure.
I like the I can't remember what the hell the name of the relic is. The Eye of Agamotto, I believe,
or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I just like what he does. It looks like he's first of all, the way he uses his hand, it's almost like he's
doing the
turning a dial or copping a feel in in the air. Like he's turning back time, but he's literally turning like he's rewinding with his hands, type of thing. Except for obviously when he was going against Dormammu, when he just kept on doing that loop. But every time he would use that ability, it was just kind of funny how he kind of was just twisting his hands like he was just undoing. I don't know. I laughed a little bit at that, that was his way of turning back time looked like he was turning a big knob over to the left. to turn things over.
That's what the book said to do, man. So you just got to follow the spell book.
Yeah, and to think that stuff that's how he learns fast. Like, okay, so let's see, turn the dial that you create with your hands to the left. That's it. For a guy who couldn't make a portal, and the only way he was able to was because he was about to die on Mount Everest, to then being able to manipulate the time stone. That's what I kind of get curious about. Like, how long was he actually there for?
He's a quick learner.
Well, if he's a quick learner, then how come he sucked so hard with just making a standard portal at the start? That dude couldn't do anything.
Because he wouldn't let his mind, be open to it yet. It took some time. He finally had to give in. Whatever the Ancient One told him was about giving in or giving up when he was on Everest. So,
and I think my favorite scene easily was just him looping and dying over and over and over because I think that really shows the extent of his powers, is that he has the ability to take any kind of action that involves him, and basically if he doesn't like it, he'll just keep on rewinding time and keep on doing it in order to keep people protected by just keep on rewinding.
If he can do that.
Yeah, but there's an implication to that. That was Morto's whole thing, is you can't just do that.
Right, yeah, it's not the natural law. So, yeah. Which it's like you said, it brings up the whole Morto thinking he's, not necessarily completely evil. He's right. He's sort of that tweener, to borrow a wrestling term. He's not a heel. He's not a villain. It'll be interesting, definitely. So that said, as we kind of wrap things up, let's do Hoagie. It's your segment, bro. Do you see it in the theaters? Do you rent it at home, or do you just catch it on the USA Network on a Sunday afternoon?
Well, I think this was a very, very important part of the universe in two ways. It was a great movie by itself, and it still gave the nod of introducing the new Infinity Stone. So with that said, it's important enough to see it in the movie theaters if you are an avid follower of the MCU. So I would say theater. And
if you're not an avid follower of the MCU, what do you think?
If you're just there just to see a fun movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, then obviously I would say it's still worthy of renting.
Addicts?
If you're a follower of MCU, obviously you're going to see all these movies. But I think if you're not a fan of the MCU, I think you can wait till it's on DVD. I really liked it, but I'm a fan of the MCU, so. But I mean, I don't know how much intrigue a magic, movie based around magic would have to. I know Lindsay would hate it, for instance. But
for me, I'm going to say this: if you're a fan of the MCU and you want to see the Marvel movies, not only should you see it in theater, but I think it's definitely a movie that should be seen in 3D. I wish I personally did see it in 3D, and it just seems like it has.
I feel like I would have thrown up.
The feel of one that's worth seeing. Like Avatar was worth seeing in 3D. I think this one would be worth seeing in 3D. But I think we all agree it was a very enjoyable movie. Highly recommend it. So,
where do you put it as far as like?
It's in my top 5 Marvel movies.
It's in your top 5 Marvel. I said I'm actually thinking the same thing. It's in my top 5.
Yep, absolutely. But for those of you PMPers out there, feel free to reach out to us on the social media. Let us know what you thought about Doctor Strange, where you think he's going to go forward, all that. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button on the iTunes. Leave us that 5-star rating. Follow us on Instagram. Go to pseudonerdpod.com. All that fun stuff. And next week, there's not going to be a show. We have a 50th episode coming up that we're going to get out to you guys before the year is out. Stay tuned on social media for the exact release day of that. But we're going to have something special for you guys to celebrate 50 episodes as we've gone almost an entire calendar year now with this show. From the home of Dimensions Auto Repair to the home of the psychedelic rock and grunge-inspired musical collective, The Love Dimension. I am Josh Kaiser, he is Josh Haddix, and he is Kyle Hoagland, and we will see you guys next time.
That one was a reach. Have a nice Friday.
It always is. See ya.